Hello, and welcome to the Curmudgeon in the Cellar. Strange and interesting times we're living in. Got a lot of individual questions that have been prompted more by my Tales from the Cellar little thing I'm doing each night. So, and I've just got done running an online game for the first time ever, and it went pretty well, and I'm doing 2 more of them tomorrow for Virtual GaryCon. Okay. So let's get started. How do we punish dice thieves or catching someone that walks off with your D&D gaming stuff? Well, a once popular method was the bastinado. That's where you strap the person down onto a bench with their bare feet hanging off the end, and then you beat the bottom of their feet with a rattan cane or a piece of rubber hose. I understand that was a great deterrent for recidivism. Seriously, though, are they stealing it, or are some people have a habit of treating dice like pens or lighters? They just they use them, they pick them up, they put them in, and it's not really a conscious, overt theft. Most of the time. Somebody stole one of my extremely rare 10-sided dice that I've never been able to find any others like it again, and I would gladly pull their ear off for having done it. But for the most part, dice are fairly forgivable if you call them on it once or twice. And if they're one of those people who pick up pens, and they won't get upset when you go, oh, dice back, please. And gaming stuff, well, how do you treat any thief? Gamers that steal from other gamers are scum. Plain and simple. Scum. Okay. Tim, can you chime in on the great debate? What first-hand experience do you have that were Gary's thoughts on 3D6 and character generation for both PCs and NPCs? In the first edition DMG, he wrote about 4 methods to use, all of which favored deviations of 1, roll 3D6 and write it down for strength. 2, roll 3D6, record this for dex. Well, to answer that, originally, it was 3D6 in order. Then it was 3D6 and assign them the way you want. Now, the most purist, and this I mean PURIST, the most purist fashion would be to roll 3D6 in order and play that character. That would certainly be the most difficult. It's still not easy if you're going to roll 6 sets of numbers and have to assign them. The other numbers were people that were upset that they'd roll 3D6 in order and they'd get croaked on the first or second timeout because they were puny. And so the various methods were various efforts to appease the public and the players. Myself, I like rolling 4D6 in order and taking the 3 best dice. But that's because I don't start a campaign over at first level anymore. It's not where I start. Of course, I'm not running a campaign as such. As to which set of, which way to do it Gary favored at the end, I couldn't tell you. I'm not privy to his thoughts toward the end. I don't know. We always kind of thought that it was the toughest, most meaningful to take a character as you got them. And then there are ways, occasionally you can find a method of gaining an extra point of intelligence or whatever. So you built that character up to a retirable level, and that meant more than somebody that would started out easier. Pardon me. It's very late tonight. I ran an online game, but I'll talk about that later. That's at the end. Okay, here we go back to hit points again. It's something everybody loves to talk about. My group always used the negative hit point mechanic to determine the severity of the wound the character took. -1 or 2 might represent something like a wicked scar after healing or a broken nose. -7 or worse usually cost the character a limb or a severe head wound, lost intelligence, wisdom, and or charisma. We created a chart to determine the wound. As I've always said, if your group has enjoyed doing it that way, keep on doing it. That said, I wouldn't. Simply because the original concept of hit points was the ability to avoid the fatal blow. Not how fatal. Does it make a difference if you lose? I mean, if I had a PC lose a limb, they'd be automatically retired right there. This isn't Knights of the Dinner Table with Bob playing his one-legged wall crawlers. So losing a limb or dead is dead. Raise dead or resurrect would have a better chance of getting you back in one piece as opposed to losing a limb. But again, that's my philosophy of playing based on the way it was originally intended. And for several years at TSR, I defended that way until now. I believe it. That's the way I play it. But again, if you're having a good time playing it another way, that's fine. A good rule is one that everybody's agreeable to play under. Okay, here's the one a little more tongue-in-cheek. What is the luckiest color for dice? And then a quote, we would throw out unlucky dice thinking they would jinx the rest. Well, I don't know that I ever said that, though I knew people who did that. What's the luckiest? I don't know. What colors do you like? The set of dice that I carry around to the conventions and that are all black and red. Meaning, well, there's a few that are actually red dice. The rest are black, and they have either white or red pips. I just like them because they look sinister. If I was playing as a player, I've got a couple of really nice purple dice and a couple of really nice dark green dice. I'd probably favor something like that. Luckiest color for dice is the color that you choose that rolls well for you. That's quarantined in Vegas. Thanks for posting those short dailies. Really helped keeps the spirits up. Was wondering why no theme song? Oversight or sometimes? No. I'm not doing the theme song on the little short daily vids, lockdown, the shelter in place vids. 2 reasons. Number one, it's more, like you said, just a spirit booster, semi tongue in cheek every day. Number 2, I wouldn't know how to put it on because my regular video, like you're going to see here, is actually edited and spliced together with the commercials and everything by my video guy who's in Asia. So that's why. First time you played D&D with Gary, your character was a dwarf. Did you ever play that character again? Well, that wasn't actually with Gary. It was I believe it was Rob Kuntz. That was Kajook. Khajook. And yeah, I played him a couple of more times. I don't recall specifically whether or not I played him with Gary or, probably in Greyhawk Probably in a playtest or two where we brought in any old character of a certain level or whatever. But by game standards, technically, he was retired. He had a duchy or a barony and castle and retainers, and I mean he hit the D&D jackpot. And that's why I definitely had a fondness for playing dwarves. Certainly, I mean, picked a winner the very first time out. Okay, this is an interesting question. Well, actually, most of the ones I list here are I wouldn't list them. Okay, you were the first one to publish content from Ed Greenwood with 2 dragons, bestiary submissions appearing in Dragon 30 and 32, the Crust and the Crawling Claw, and variant rules for Divine Right in Dragon 34. Was there anything to hint that he would go on to play such a large role in the hobby's future, like clear talent, or was it simply another case of you giving someone young their first break and him going on to influence the hobby more than anyone could imagine? Well, as I've mentioned several times before, I was extremely fortunate in that I had a wealth of talent to choose from. In the beginning, I was taking anybody that had a good idea that I could buff back up into something if necessary to publish. As our fame and our circulation grew, I got better and better stuff. Creative people generally tend to write well. Very creative people write very well. Given the pool of talent that I was drawing from, Ed was a very good writer. I liked his ideas. They didn't violate canon. Did I know? No, I didn't have a crystal ball that told me Ed Greenwood was going to go on to do what he did. Gary didn't have a crystal ball about me or anybody else. I mean, that aside, he was a good writer. He expressed himself well. He had good ideas and he expressed them well. That puts you halfway home right there. If I was the first one to publish him, hey, great. He's one of a very long list of people that I was fortunate enough to give a shot to, give him a break. Give him that shot. Okay, here's a rather unpleasant one I got. Dude, if you're okay with calling it the China virus, then you are living an aggressively unexamined life. Get your head out of your ass and call it COVID-19. Dude, an aggressively unexamined life. That really doesn't even make sense on the surface. And the deeper you dig in, it implies unpleasant things. I simply stated that I didn't see why people had to be losing their shit over the whole thing, and gave some historical precedents. Personally, I don't give a goddamn what you call it. I just say, don't lose your shit over something that has a historical precedent. All right, if you want to get all snowflakey and be all politically correct, fine. That's your generational hang-up, not mine. I respect it. I don't use words that people find objectionable. And for a person of my generation, I'm pretty damn liberal-minded. So don't worry about my ass, okay? Or my head. Another benefit of early shopping is that many stores run stock at night, and when you get there in the morning, you get first pick of restocked items. Stay well. Well, actually, we were there at 7:10 or whatever, and it was not all that well stocked. I'm sure it was as well stocked as they could get it, but I found it pretty discomforting that we couldn't find any 1-pound packages of ground beef, just the 3-pound logs. And there were some other things that they were out of. Apparently sparkling ice, which is a 0-calorie flavored water that I dearly love, has become very rare and very hard to get. I've not been able to get it for a couple of weeks now. So, yeah, I understand, though. It's well stocked. It's better stocked, and it's the cleanest it's going to be all day. I have a question. There's a question here. Is that a TV in the background? And I'm guessing you're referring to that right there over my shoulder head. And no, that's not a TV. That's a photograph of me and Joe Manganiello and Sofia Vergara. I got to meet them just about a year ago today, roughly. And this weekend, I would say. And I actually got to go to their home in Beverly Hills, which is lovely and luscious. And I got to run a game for Joe and his friends down in his very famous wine cellar / gaming room. So that's what you're seeing back there. I like to she was one of the sweetest ladies I have ever met. Famous, not famous, whatever, just a lovely conversationalist, and she smelled so good. Oh my Lord. Okay, now here's an interesting response to the story I read from a person who apparently walks camels for a living, and said, in case I ever find myself owning a camel, it'd be handy to know that they really like eating the vines of honeysuckle. Well, that's good to know. If I ever win a camel in a lottery, I've got honeysuckle here they can eat and clear out a corner of my yard for me. That'd be all right. All right, and here's the last one, the last question before I do a little talk about this virtual GaryCon stuff. Do you have an opinion regarding people with no RPG design experience providing critical reviews of RPGs? My thinking, probably wrong, is that unless you're engaged in the industry and have some experience designing and publishing RPGs, that person reviews carry little value. By critical review, I mean the reviewer analyzing a game system and pointing out what's good and bad about it. Okay, here's what I think about reviewers, because I've been asked to review before, so I probably don't qualify for what you're asking about. But here's what I think. I think good reviewers today are very few and far between. I think most people today that pass themselves off reviewers spend more time telling us what they think the game should have been than what the game actually is, or does, or how it plays. That said, if a person wants to review a game and they say, I have played this game 8 hours and this is my assessment of it, that is, on its face, a valid review, because it's coming from the point of a player. And if it's how it played, how I felt as a player, how I felt the player, how I interacted with the rules, it's completely valid. Now, whether or not you think that person writing the review is a sock full of horseshit or has some brains, that I can't say. That's, Rex Reed was considered a monumental pain in the butt until he became the famous critic that he became. Being a critic is a tough business. If the only criteria for reviewing an RPG were to have developed or written your own RPG, there wouldn't be anybody to write the reviews, because everybody that's written or writing an RPG is still writing that RPG or working on that RPG or finishing that RPG. Also, it's a natural human bias to find flaws in something that we've done ourselves that we think we did better. So it's going to be harder, I think, for another designer to review because he's going to be comparing it to the way he did it. So if it's not the way he did it, okay. Mouse Tales is an RPG of a radically different type and style and vibe. I think you'd almost have to be familiar with design work to be able to assess what's good about that game, because it's so different from what most people are used to. You can't be a board game reviewer if you don't play board games. You can't be a minis reviewer if you don't play minis. You obviously have to play RPGs to be able to review them. To be fair to all the other designers out there, and I could count myself amongst one of them, it would be almost impossible to give a fair and honest review of somebody else's game, because we all got in and wrote our games because we felt that we were going to write the best game and nobody else had quite done. That's what drives us to do it. I don't know if that answers anything. All right, the last thing I got to talk about is this amazing event going on this weekend called Virtual GaryCon. When the governor of Wisconsin said, okay, no, you can't do it, they immediately pivoted to a virtual convention with over 400 events in such an amazing fashion that Forbes magazine felt compelled to write an article about them this week. I just ran my first one. Some glitches, but that's as much my communications difficulties as anybody else's. We got it run. We had a good time. The next two will go much smoother. Much smoother. And because now we know what we're doing and how to get the game up and running, literally. I'm going to be doing a 2-hour seminar. I'm doing a game, and I'm doing it on Skype, and you can come in and listen even though you're not playing. We had a guy listening tonight who's playing tomorrow, because it doesn't make any difference if you're going to play tomorrow, because the game won't be the same. I mean, it'll still be role-playing, but that's all. I'm doing another one tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Central Time, p.m., and I'm doing a 2-hour Q&A, question and answers seminar thing on their Twitch stream at 8 o'clock Central Time. So for that one, you'll have to go into their Twitch stream, which is on their website. And for my two, you just got to go to Skype and find me. I'm Cascoid on Skype, just like I'm Cascoid everywhere else. And I think that pretty much sums it up. I found that I could play my style of game is theater of the mind anyway. I don't use minis. I don't use hex grids or anything like that. So it worked out pretty well tonight. I'd like to be able to display more screens. We had 5 people, so I had 4 big squares and a little tiny circle. I wish I could have. I'd rather had 5 smallish circles, but that's the limitations of Skype. I'll see if, maybe I'll look into Zoom at some point in time if I decide to do this again. And I think I might. If I can find a reliable platform, I think it's very probable that I will pursue running games online and see what can develop from that. In the meantime, go to the GaryCon Bazaar page and grab a souvenir that now will be twice as valuable because it's the con that didn't happen. And practice social distancing. Sneeze into your elbow, wash your hands, don't touch your face. We'll get through this. Keep gaming. Dodata Gobi. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.